Hi, so I lived in southern Italy for a while in a place called Lecce. Lecce is famous for two things, the buildings, carving, and a form of sculpture called CartaPesta. It's essentially a Papier Mache, but they do some amazing things with it, and in the town centre there's a sculpture of one of the saints, Peter I think, and it's about 5 metres tall and it's made from Papier Mache. What they normally do though, and there's thousands of these shops in Lecce, is they make small figurines about 30 centimetres high or so, and the essential way of making them is to use a pre-made clay face and hands, a wire armature which they wrap with straw and then bind up, and then they cover it with layers of paper and glue, paint it up and sell them on. They're really quite cool. Now I had a go at this and it's actually very simple and relatively easy to do. The main problems being that in England of course we don't do it, so you can't get the pre-made heads and faces. So in this video what I'm going to do is make a CartaPesta sculpture about 30 centimetres tall. Now my daughter has a doll collection, and I imagine every daughter has a doll collection, and if you can't find a doll from your daughter's doll collection, you can always go down to the local charity shop and pay 50p or so for some kind of doll there. But what I chose, and don't let my daughter know, is this one. As you can see, the head's about the size of a thumb, and by the time that we finish with it, it's going to be about the right size. Now all you actually want from this doll is the face, because should I pull the head off and try to use it, she's not going to be too happy. So what we're going to do is make an impress of the face and then a cast of the face, and then we're going to use that cast. Making an impress is relatively simple. All you need to do is get something soft and pliable like this, which is plasticine, and then press the face into the plasticine, wrapping it round. Make sure it's got a level base to it as you bring it down. So all I do is press it on the desk so it's level, pressed around, and then peel it back off. There you go, and you've got a face impressed. Pop that down. Now what we're going to do with this is pour some resin in there. So we need to make sure that the thing won't spill resin everywhere. And what I'm doing is thumbing it up so that it's relatively level, so that when I pour the resin in I get the face, and enough of the face, and it doesn't spill everywhere. Okay. Now what I use is this stuff. You can get it from Halford's, fast glass resin, great stuff, sets in a few minutes, along with hardener and something to mix it in. I use these. It's a baked bean can. They come with a ring pull, so they're totally safe. Once you've mixed resin in them, there's nothing much else you can do with them. It sets at the bottom, you can reuse them a number of times. When it fills up you have to throw them away. So I collect them basically, wash them out and use them again. Now with this resin, if you just leave it by itself, it'll set rock hard and splinter. And that makes it a bit difficult because you can't carve it afterwards, and you're going to need to do a little bit of carving just to make sure that it's okay. So I poured a little bit of resin in there. You don't need much because look at the size of the face that we're going to make. Now with this resin, what you do is you need to have a filler in it. The filler I'm using is just ordinary plain flour. It does perfectly well. You just put enough in there to make a stiff paste. So I put about a tablespoon in there. That'll make up stiff paste, but it'll still flow. Give it a stir. If you put a bit too much flour in there, just add a little bit of resin. Bear in mind that whatever you don't pour into that face mould that we've just made is going to be a waste. You're going to have to throw it away. Now this stuff comes out roughly the same colour as the hardener. In this case the hardener that came with the resin is a red colour, so it'll come out pink. Doesn't really matter, you're going to paint it anyway. Now there are directions on the side of the packet for how much of this stuff you've got to put in. It does tell you if you put more in it sets quicker, but it's more brittle. Put less in, it sets slower obviously. You can see it doesn't take long to mix it up. Pour it into your mould. There we go, so you see it's a relatively stiff paste. You need to make sure that the colour's even throughout, incidentally, but that's not difficult, you just give it a good old mix. Okay, spread that out a little bit and leave that to set. It will take about 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. As you see, that's nice and hard. I went off and made a cup of coffee. Back now. Peels away. Oh, I should say, when the resin sets, actually it gets quite hot. And in this case, it's melted the plasticine onto it. Not really a problem. Put that to one side. You can use that again. Get a bit of kitchen roll and just clean it off. And as you can see, it comes off relatively easily. Actually, this is still setting, so it's still quite warm. Doesn't really matter. And there you go, you see it's starting to clean up. I'm going to go and give this a wash and come back in a second. Okay, I've given this a clean. There it is, and you can see there's a couple of faults with it. It's got a bit there that needs to be taken off, a bit there, and it's a little bit lumpy just on that cheek. This kind of thing is going to happen when you do a rough and ready sculpture like this. It's just the way it is. So you trim those bits off that you're interested in. Now, you would not be able to do this unless you put flour into this mix. This would just be like glass, it would just break. So I'll give it a trim round to bring out the features a bit more than I wanted. There we go, that'll do. Don't need to worry too much about that, it's going to be hidden. As far as the lump on the face is concerned, get a little bit of sandpaper. It sands really easily actually, and just sand it down until you're happy with it. Again, we don't really need to worry too much about it, because remember, you're going to paint this thing, so but get it so you're happy with it. I'm getting pretty happy with that. Now, depending on your level of skill, there we go, you can carve out the features a little bit, so give it some eyebrows, give it some eyelids, take a little bit more out the eyes so the eyes are more pronounced, maybe make the mouth a little bit more pronounced, something like that. It's quite a baby face, but then it came from a doll, so I'm not surprised. I did once make a sculpture of St. Peter, and for that I used an action man, and the level of detail on that was actually quite astounding. Now, there is one other problem with it, I'll be able to see, but on the nose right there and there were air bubbles in the mix. They do tell you loads of times to take care of that and to be careful in your mixing, but to be honest, it's a real drag. So what I do is little holes like that, and they aren't really big holes, it just gets some kind of filler. This particular one is a wood filler. Again, doesn't really matter, ordinary household filler will do anything really that's going to fill those holes. A little bit, and just pop it in the holes. There you go, it's done. We've popped in the holes and just bring it round to fill those holes up. Again, when you paint this up, those holes will just disappear and blend into the background, and because they're holes, the whole thing's sitting inside of them and they won't chip off or break off. It's a bit difficult to see the level of detail on this because of the coloration. When we get it painted, it'll be a bit more obvious.